Hello, and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by Mike Smith, award-winning director Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie. On today's show, we dissect a few notable nuggets from the Game Awards, and we get to talk about what we're loving. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund. Incredible! Welcome back, friends, to the pod, Confidently Wrong. We're happy to be here. We had our big 50th episode blowout last time, and it was like the Academy Awards. I think there was all the pomp and circumstance. We had amazing moments. Kanye West did not jump up on stage, though. So
I was literally about to make that joke.
However, the red carpet, damn, people were like showing that drip.
Stunning with the onesies.
Yeah, there were onesies and comfies and Laker gear.
And rings and...
Oh, yeah. Necklace, a new necklace. I like it. Got that bling on. I kind of previewed this on our last show, but the Game Awards just happened at the beginning of December. And the Game Awards have been going on in different forms for a few years. It's apparently a big deal, not even though I've never heard of them before this year. But a lot of people participated this year. There was, I think, a good amount of hype for it. I think also because last year's show was virtual, I think the game industry was excited that it was going to be back in person and that there was an actual show to be had this year. So I just wanted to start actually with the biggie. Past winners of the Game of the Year, which is their major award that they give out or they award, have included God of War, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Is that how you say it? Sekiro?
I think it's Sekiro.
Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Breath of the Wild is a past winner, a game that all of us have really enjoyed and talked ad nauseum about. And last year's winner was The Last of Us Part 2, which just an incredible game. Mike has called it his favorite game of all time, I believe. And I think it's up there for me as well. And we put out a great pod on it last year. Even though the quality of our audio wasn't as good back then, I think the content was there. This year was a bit of a surprise, I'm not going to lie. It Takes Two, a kind of silly, fun indie game, which Brian actually brought to our attention a few months ago.
You're welcome.
Yeah, by award-winning director Brian Redondo actually brought it to our attention. It took home Game of the Year award honors. And it beat out some heavy hitters. Most people, I think, expected either Psychonauts 2 or Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart to take home Game of the Year. Metroid Dread was a kind of a dark horse there. But it Takes Two, a collaborative game that is a lot of fun, has a cool story, but maybe not necessarily the favorite to win that. Where did you stand on that, Brian? What when I told you that this went down, what was your reaction?
You know, as much as this burnishes my personal brand into just showing everybody else that I have good taste.
You're a culture setter, man.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this game to you guys, and now it's Game of the Year. So, geez.
Royalties!
But in all honesty, I was like, what? Game of the Year? That's epic ridiculous. It is. I mean, I do enjoy this game. It Takes Two. Because it's a game that I can sit on the couch and play with my wife, Anna. It's a very low stakes, kind of like casual platformer, puzzly type game. And it has a fun story about a married couple that's on the brink of divorce.
Fun.
And maybe at first glance, not great for a couple, but over the course of the game, as the story develops, they of course mend their relationship. And every level is fun and exciting and great art direction, all of that. All of that said, not the best game of the year. I mean, it's like not even the best game of the month whichever month it came out in. I have multiple times fell asleep while playing this game with Anna. Like, if that says anything to you about
fall
like,
asleep playing a game.
Like, how great is that gameplay? I mean, it is a lot of fun. I will say this. I do like the fact that the Game Awards are rewarding something that it is a bit original, which is like the couch co-op, full story mode, third person kind of game. I wish we had way more games to choose from in that category, in that mode of game. So it's nice to see this get kind of that love and recognition, and maybe in the future, I don't remember the company that the developers of this game, but maybe they'll make future games that are more awesome in that vein. Maybe other game companies will do the same. That would be really cool. Or we'll just get, other fresher games that are about things that aren't just shooting people and killing people.
More
I like
games
that
about
this game is
divorce.
about divorce. No, I like that. I
Yeah,
think
but
that's
what
cool.
about Last of Us? Like shooting and killing people, but it makes me sad.
Oh, that game is amazing. I mean, that's a game of generation. So yeah, that's an exception to the rule. When you can do it at that level, do it. Otherwise, give me something new and fresh. That's what I want. But I'll also say this about some of the other games. Like, I haven't played Ratchet and Clank. I haven't played Psychonauts, but those are sequels. Metroid Dread, also a sequel. I've played a little bit of that demo, and I will say, like, for a side scroller on the Switch, not terribly innovative or anything like that. And there are lots of games like that I think are actually far better. So, I don't know. The pool is what it is.
Wait, can I ask you something then? Do you think that this game in particular winning in this particular year and context says anything about like our appetite or the wider appetite for what kind of games we're looking for? Or
No.
was this just sort of like they
No.
just shot themselves in the foot and kind of picked the wrong game?
Maybe they wanted to be splashy. I don't know. They're also I think it says something about the fact that there's just lots of games out there these days, right? You got all these different developers and indie developers and stuff. So lots of stuff is coming out the woodwork and on various different platforms. So a lot of choices. But I think Mike will take this up in the fact that maybe none of those choices were clear winners.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think It Takes Two was even the best game this year. Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, we have to mention, things like that. But let's just one more time, really quick, go through the past winners. God of War, which was a brilliant reimagining of one of the biggest franchises of all time. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, like another rethinking of a major genre with the Soulsborne games. Breath of the Wild, which is Breath of the Wild, and Last of Us 2, which is Last of Us 2. And then It Takes Two, like that's what we're following it up with. I was very surprised, but I think this says more about games that have come out this year than the quality of any of this individual game or kind of any of the other individual games. I just think none of them come remotely close to the past 4 or 5 winners. So I same reaction as Brian. It was just kind of weird confusion.
I was just wondering if maybe this sort of signals, especially in a time of pandemic when, like you said, we're kind of looking for things to do, especially things that are indoors. And this game does cooperation in a very cool way, in a way
Sure.
that most games don't, right? As like
Sure.
a side-by-side getting to do cooperative.
Sure.
And maybe that's just what their thinking was. Like, it kind of innovated and made that experience very cool in a way that maybe hasn't been done in a very long time. So, but if
I
you're
think
saying
we're
no,
going to get back on track next year. We're going to have another Horizon game, another God of War game. Elden Ring is coming out. Like, I think we'll be kind of back on the typical trajectory and the kind of larger, environment of those really great AAA games. So I feel like this year, just kind of move on from it, not really think too much about it.
Yeah, kind of a down year.
Captain Bonnie.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I just don't care about award shows. I just don't put a lot of stock in them. All the things, like, I don't know what their criteria is. What do y'all value in a game? Like, Wes, you're a teacher. Mike, you work. I like having a rubric where we can decide what qualities are we actually valuing and evaluating this game.
But that's not how
Otherwise-
stuff like this works. Like,
Yeah, I get it, but that's why
best
I
of
don't care
the year
about it.
and MVP, they don't have any criteria. It's just like, what do you think is the best? That's it. That's the criteria.
Yeah, but for video games, there's almost no real way to quantify that. And it
That's
just
true
makes
for
it hard
MVPs too in basketball.
there's numbers you can at least use to have something you can work with. But I feel like video games are at that point, and again, this is how and keep for the record, I feel this way about movies, pretty much any media. I just think award shows just mean nothing to me. And the problem is that there's, besides the lack of consistency, games are just one of those things where they're so wide spanning genre wise and who they're marketed to that I just can't take it seriously to say this is the best game of the year, because so many people play so many different games for so many different reasons and value different stuff. So like, what makes the game good? Is it because it's fun? Is it because it sold a lot? And sometimes I feel like it's almost with like AAA games, it almost feels like Oscar bait of like, all right, what's the big expensive game that's just going to automatically get thrown into the conversation because there's just such a big media push behind it. Not to say it's not good, but I guess what I'm getting at is that all the games that end up being game of the year is usually a really cool AAA 8-hour story mode game more often than not. And it's just, I don't know, I just don't put a lot of stock in that. Like, who's playing these games? Who's comparing them? You know, does the online matter? Do we even care about that? I just do not care for award shows. The same reason I hate the Grammys, same reason I hate the Oscars.
I like how we went out of our way to be like, okay, let's do an episode on the Game Awards, and everybody was like, we don't care about the Game Awards.
But I think it's worth talking about, at least for me. I think it's worth explaining. Yo, it's not like I don't care for no reason. I think I have a very specific reason why I don't care.
But I think it's good that the Game Awards exist, even though I agree with you, like the Grammys are total BS and the Game Awards maybe a little bit, but it does something for the industry, which is basically to elevate how we think about video games as a culture and highlighting and recognizing something that we can put forward out to the masses and be like, look at this game. This is an example of really exceptional video game making, and which is very much exemplified by all those previous winners that you mentioned. It's just such a shame that this year's entry doesn't quite fit that mold. But I will say I do agree with you, Savon, that what you've pointed out does seem to be true. Like these third person 8-hour, 10-hour story driven action adventure games seem to be the thing that the Game Awards likes, but you know, it's what I like too, so I'm glad.
and I like a lot of those games too, but you know, I've become very conscious of certain types of games just never even going to be in the conversation, and that in itself just makes it harder for me to take it seriously. The same way you could be one of the best rap, you know, the same reason Kendrick Lamar doesn't win Album of the Year over Macklemore. It's just like, okay, it's like I feel like the Game Awards fall to a similar trap where, you know, I don't know. And the thing is, O'Brien, I agree with you about the other part, the showcasing, highlighting people's achievements, the work that goes into it. Could not agree more. And I think that's a great thing, which is why I don't say cancel the awards. But to me, it just means I put next to no merit in the award itself. I do still agree with you. We should still highlight the amazing work that goes into games that are really artistic masterpieces. But don't take it and say, oh, it's Game of the Year, and then act like that elevates it above other games in some special way when it doesn't. It's just a really good game that we decided now to put on a pedestal, which is cool, but that doesn't make it better than other games. So, you know,
I'm just
cool.
absorbing that. I think I disagree, because we always disagree, me and Savon, but all right.
I mean, to me, the big thing is there's no rubric. If there's no rubric, then you can just pretty much say anything and say,
I'm
oh,
a
it's Game of
teacher,
the Year.
and like I don't care about the rubric.
Exceeds expectations.
Like, there's
Like, you
no...
can't rubricize a piece of
Yeah.
art, though, or a piece of entertainment. Like, it works or it doesn't, and it's a whole thing. Like, you can't, like, if you just said, oh, it has to hit these rubric, like, you're going to end up with a very formulaic game, and it's
You're
not
gonna
going to
get like
be something...
Assassin's Creed 12.
Yeah, but that's already how award shows work, though. That's
I don't think
already
it
what it
is.
is. Like, I think it's 100% how it already goes.
All right.
And, you know, but I think the point I'm making is that the entertainment is so subjective and specific to people's individual tastes that trying to do an award show is already
It's
a
a folly.
fool's errand.
Right.
I mean, like the movies that win Best Picture every year, they're all kind of tangentially similar,
Like, I don't give a damn
right?
about the stuff that
Like,
wins in movies and awards. Like, I watch, I'm like, I don't care about this. Who, like, I get there's an audience that would like this, but it leaves out so many other things and people that, like, I can't put real stake in it.
Can I go back and change my Rant of the Year award now?
to this.
Look, like Leonardo DiCaprio won that award for the movie Revenant with the bear. Who gives a damn? Like, what was
It's a
special
good
about that
movie.
movie?
That was awesome.
Yeah, I
That's a
love
great
that movie.
performance.
I
Okay,
fell asleep, but I love that movie.
But put it like this: I'll rate Friday After Next over that movie because Friday After Next is entertaining to me, and it ticks the boxes of my personal standards of what goes into a good movie. And you're
On the
allowed to like
record
one over the
saying
other.
Friday After Next is a better movie than The Revenant.
For me, to me personally. Now, if you like Revenant more power to you. But like, I don't care if a bunch of disconnected people in Hollywood say, "Oh, this is the best movie of the year." To me,
But they're not
it's this
disconnected.
movie.
They're movie makers. Like
Hey,
they
we can
know
be a
what goes into making
populist
movies.
show. That's fine.
Yeah, I get
We
what you're saying.
We reject the coastal liberal elite system picking best game and best picture.
All right, so I feel like Savon should be then excited that this kind of like out of the blue winner came up as Dark Horse.
I just don't think he cares either way.
It's true. You're right.
The whole system is trash to me.
Yeah. I mean, I get that point that like, how can you pick a game that is game of the year when not everybody's going to like it? But I don't think that's the definition of game of the year, right? It's just like the game that like either had the most entertainment or it was like unique in some way and it was innovative. It like brought the it factor, right? And I mean, I think that's what you do with any award that's like the best of the year, right? It doesn't mean that everybody has to like it. It just
Innovative
means that,
don't mean best.
What'd you say?
Innovative don't mean best, but that's again, this is all like
Right,
my
but
original
that's
point
part
of like
the puzzle. I'm not saying that that's the only thing they're looking for, but I think in your mind, if you said like, what's like my favorite food or what's the best food, like people aren't going to pick like food that tastes like crap, right? Like, and they're going to pick food that tastes good. And maybe not everybody loves that food, but we're going to like it.
Like, I think that's a good example. If you tried to pick food of the year, that's a silly conversation. 'Cause what if you just don't like meat?
We should
I don't
totally do food of the year.
Food of the year.
Like saying, "Oh, this dish of the year is the most innovative." Like, cool, but what if I'm a? What
But
if I
people
just
do
don't
that
like?
with restaurants all the time. Best new restaurant.
Yeah, and that's why it's also silly.
I don't
I
think,
think
it
it's like exceptionalism, basically, right? Like what stands out from the pack
Best
that you think
country.
is exceptional. Yeah.
Best-
America, USA.
Oh my god, I'm getting so plussed that I'm gonna like start sweating.
All right. One of the awards that the Game Awards handed out was the best indie game, and this game went to a game that we all kind of talked about with anticipation a few months ago, Kena Bridge of Spirits. Mike, did we talk about this on the pod about why it kind of fell flat for you?
I don't think so, and I'm just gonna read the note I had.
All right.
And it's because I'm an idiot.
What does that mean?
It was just one of those games where you really needed to kind of, and maybe this was just like a big Wesley moment for me. It's just like, you kind of just need to vibe with it, like go with it. It's a meditative, like beautiful, interesting game. It's got the great graphics, the Pixar style animation. The gameplay was pretty fun, but it just, for me, it didn't really feel like it was progressing in a way I liked. It just kind of felt like a loop over and over again, and given that it was kind of small in scope in a way that felt particularly more acute, like go here and fight these small guys. Then at the end of that, you're going to fight a little boss. Then you're going to repeat that. Then you're going to fight a medium boss. Then you're going to repeat it one more time. Then you're going to fight the big boss. And I did that whole loop one time, kind of like that Ubisoft, like clear the little bases. And then each time you do that, you like clear out the tree. And then when you get all 3 trees, you fight the big boss. And then you can go on to the next section. I did that first like 1/3 of the world. And I was like, okay, I think I've seen all I need to see here. I don't need to just go do that again. Maybe the next section would have been dramatically different, but I don't think it is. I think overall, I'm kind of over open world. I think that the two things people do now in games is just like design the game and like either it has to be obnoxiously difficult or it has to be an open world game. It's like the only 2 types of games that come out now, and I'm just like kind of over open world slogs. I feel like a lot of times you kind of see what you need to see in the first chunk of it, and if the story isn't consistent and really tied into the way you progress through the world, things just kind of fall apart. I think Ghost of Tsushima like very much could have been that, but that game did such a good job of making such a beautiful, engaging world that it kind of was able to stand by itself. So again, maybe this is just a smooth brain moment for Mike, but the game, I enjoyed what I saw, and I didn't really feel the need to continue past that point.
Well said. I think
It's weird to me that there's a separation between Game of the Year and Best Indie Game.
Yeah, so it's like in the Oscars, like you can win like Best Movie and Best Action Movie, right? Like things like that, or at least in the Grammys, I know when you win Best Album, you're gonna win Best Genre Album, right? It's weird that they did all the other genres and then picked It Takes Two. No?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Weird. Sorry.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Where
we can
at
cut
here?
that.
All right. One of the things I think that actually is kind of an important piece of the Game Awards, and Savon, maybe you won't hate this part, and I believe this comes directly from the producer and host Jeff Keighley, who I think comes from like the Spike TV days. Is
G4.
that he includes sneak peeks and trailers. He tries to get like the video game industry to bring their newest looks at any of their work that they're coming out in the next year or two. And this year I thought included some very cool stuff. I included in the show notes, you can see some of these, I'll call them things, content, whatever, titles that are coming in the next few years that they got a preview and look at during the Game Awards. Did anything catch your eye, Brian?
There are two things that really caught my eye. One of them I know that a certain Mike Smith will probably talk about. But the second one was surprisingly to me was Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad game, Kill All the Justice League or whatever the subtitle is, actually looked like a buttload of fun. Can I say buttload on this podcast?
I think so. You just did.
That's kid-friendly.
It's coming from Rocksteady Games, and their last big series of games were those Batman Arkham games, which are pretty phenomenal gameplay wise and story wise, and really took the superhero genre of video game up several notches, right, and kind of set a gold standard for what superhero games could be. So knowing that this is the next game that they have worked on, Suicide Squad, I'm kind of delightfully surprised that it's this IP, which I think offers a wide variety of gameplay, but I do have faith in Rocksteady that they are the ones who can make this happen. And so in the trailer, we see a lot of cool things happening. We see King Shark, which to me seems like the most fun character that you could possibly play with, and like biting off somebody's head. You see Harley Quinn doing her thing. I believe is it Bloodsport is the one that's in this?
I thought that was Deadshot.
Or it's Deadshot. Excuse me, it's Deadshot. So of course, with his arsenal of weapons, that's got to be a lot of fun. And then the clincher, really, in the trailer at least, that they show is that the Suicide Squad is out to kill the Flash, and the Flash seems like a real grade A prick. Of a superhero.
He looked evil or like controlled. He looked like he was not himself.
There's something going on with him. But what a fun main boss to fight against, right? Flash, speedster. How do you even tackle an opponent like that? But doing it with King Shark, I don't know, but I do think at the very least it'll be an interesting game to play. I have faith in Rocksteady that the game mechanics will be very good and solid, and that they'll be able to figure out that puzzle. So I think that's a good one to look forward to.
Mike.
You already know.
Big Frida.
You already know.
I think about... I kind of have this meme in my head. And like the Thor Ragnarok meme with like the big monster demon in the back where it's like, you can't defeat me, and it's like, oh, I know, but he can, pointing in the back. I think about like EA being like, you can't defeat me, and then in the back it's like, oh, I know, but he can't, and it's Disney. And I think about one of the things that's been almost reassuring and giving me a potential for hope in the future was in this past year when Disney kind of went to EA and was like, we don't really care about our exclusivity agreement. We're going to kind of just have all these other studios make games. You kind of dropped the ball. Sorry. So it's exciting that Disney kind of has unclenched EA's tendrils on the Star Wars game franchise. We have a lot of cool Star Wars games coming up. Obviously, there's Fallen Order 2. Ubisoft is making a open world Star Wars game, which could be whatever, but if it's essentially just Assassin's Creed Star Wars, I'm not going to complain. This new one is really piqued my interest. We don't know anything about it. We got like a very thematic trailer. The game is called Star Wars Eclipse. It is made, or it takes place in the High Republic, so about 200 years prior to the events of Episode 1, the Jedi at their peak power. The trailer is this is the High Republic. That's the Old Republic.
Thank you. Good clarification.
What about the New Republic?
We don't talk about that.
Oh, God.
What about Banana Republic?
So this is made by... I'm forgetting what the studio's called. Quantic Dream. So they've made their famous games recently have been Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain. They're incredibly narrative driven to the point where the gameplay is almost entirely QuickTime events. So it's really not, a traditional game.
Yeah,
this
talk about
isn't going to be
games.
A movie with buttons.
This isn't going to be that. This is going to be an action adventure game that, and this, I just saw this tweet yesterday and I damn near lost my mind, that is primarily going to be influenced by The Last of Us. I don't know what that means, but I go with kind of Brian's piqued interest here. We got some like cynicism from Savon. Wesley just kind of looked confused. Brian was like, So I think it could be cool. The one thing that gives me pause is the head guy over there. I believe his name is David Cage. Appears to be a bit of a toxic D-bag in terms of the environment he's created and the work environment. He said really sexist, homophobic, all types of horrible things. So we'll see the impact that has. That's essentially kind of been the vibe I've gotten from the community, is that people are excited that having an action-adventure, story-driven Star Wars game influenced by one of the best story-driven action-adventure games in recent memory, but have a lot of pause because of David Cage. And again, I think that's his name. Honorable mention here.
I thought you were going to go with Dune, since you were on your Dune kick.
Real-time strategy, snooze. That's like the only thing less boring than a board game. No offense, Brian.
What the hell, man?
Big offense. RTS is fire, bro.
I do play some Civ sometimes. I don't know if that counts. I guess it's not real-time, because it's turn-based. Anyway, honorable mention. I didn't play it yet, but this new Matrix experience driven by the Unreal Engine is really interesting. It seems really cool. I think the particularly cool thing it's a massive, very fleshed out open world that was developed by a very small. I don't know why Savon isn't interested. We'll find out in a second. It's procedurally generated in a way that they're able to use that engine to procedurally generate a pretty interesting world. I haven't played it. I don't know if you played it yet, Savon, or if you're just cynicism. It means it creates itself, essentially. Like No Man's Sky, like no one, like there's thousands of worlds in that game, right? They're not going in and creating each individual one. The computer makes the world. So it's perceived. So like the city was built by the computer. They didn't go in and place every building. It kind of made itself. So I think that's interesting. Essentially, what that shows is you can make a much stronger, more thorough product with a smaller group of people, which could end up being a benefit for something like Cyberpunk, right? Where they can actually create that world in a thorough way because they don't have to go in and make every tiny little thing in that crazy time crunch they have. So maybe this might be something that ends up just kind of enabling the shitty capitalistic practices in the industry, or it could just be something that can also empower smaller studios that wouldn't have had the resources to make something like this previously.
Mm-hmm. You got to be careful with the world generating stuff, because there was even an old Tony Hawk game, American Wasteland, that had a similar feature. A lot of times it sounds really cool on paper, but looks very underwhelming. Yeah,
that's kind of what people said. Is it's like it's big, but it's like kind of empty. Like it feels a little soulless.
What I said is, why is the ocean deep as a puddle?
Really good. Yeah, so I think this is just kind of an example. I don't think it's fully fleshed out, but it is kind of like this does have potential.
Mm-hmm. Yo, keep Keanu Reeves away from your game. That's why I was making that face. Don't let Keanu Reeves anywhere near a game. They clearly he just trying to secure the bag, and I respect that. But you would think game people would realize, hey, stop trying to shoehorn celebrities into your games to help promote it, because clearly that is never in line with what the developers are actually doing and working on. Now, I know he was in the Matrix. I get it. I don't care. I do not trust him. I don't trust actors and celebrities being the faces within game stuff.
I agree with your broader point, but I will not tolerate Keanu Reeves slander. That man is a national treasure. We need to keep him just the way
he is. The reason Cyberpunk was trash. Let's be very clear about that.
His one
put that at
character
his
made it
feet.
trash.
His
I want to be very clear. His character,
But that's not his fault.
no,
Yeah.
from a
That's the
technical
writer's
perspective. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, he was the face of it though. Not from a technical perspective. From a narrative perspective, his character ruined the entire game.
This feels
When
like
I replayed the
Asian racism going
when I
on here,
played-
guys.
Keanu Reeves is Asian?
He's Asian. He's like
It's
half
like a quarter or something.
Of
Look,
what?
his character
Oh, never mind.
ruined the game. That's all we need to know. So,
Yeah,
just
well, I mean, the context
careful.
there is that they had him be a very small character, then everybody lost their shit at that award show, and then they rewrote a lot of the game to have him be a bigger character.
yeah, it's almost as if some of those things come into direct conflict with one another. It's wild.
Something that caught my eye was this game called Planet of Lana. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the trailer. It's just, I thought it was kind of neat. There was cool visuals going on. There was a very clear, different art style, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but that's just something that I'm going to keep on my radar for next year or the year after that, whenever it comes out, and see if the reviews are good, because it just seemed like something that was kind of different and something that maybe I wouldn't always like, but it seemed like a pretty fun go. I think anytime you see games that aren't just the typical, like you said, AAA titles, it kind of piques my interest of like, oh, like, is that a game I would enjoy? Because I don't get to hear about those games. They don't have the mass marketing budget that, Star Wars is going to have, or that Matrix has, or Halo, or all those games.
Is this a side scroller?
I don't think so. It was like really colorful. I didn't get a sense of like what the story was about or what the like premise of the video game was about. It just looked pretty cool. So I don't think I can get too excited about it, but it definitely caught my eye as, oh, that could be different.
It reminds me of like some mashup between Breath of the Wild and Monument Valley in terms of art style. And the gameplay looks like Inside.
Although, great way to describe that. Breath of the Wild gets comparison to everything. I like it. The other two things that sort of caught my eye, but with a lot of skepticism, was Wonder Woman getting a game and Suicide Squad getting a game. And I think, Brian, what you said makes me like this a bit more, that it just could just be like a romp. But I do find that sometimes superhero games can be tricky to pull off because they're sort of they're sort of stuck within the bounds of other media, right? Superheroes often come from movies or from comic books. And so the video game tries to maintain a lot of the character and what works in those other media. But video games, as we've talked about, are just such a different thing. And they're so much more interactive. And you have to identify with the character in some way, or, there has to be some kind of like buy-in. And it seems like sometimes superhero games can end up just being like a grab bag. It's not like, oh, this game was like a labor of love. It was like, oh, here's this thing and we know it's going to make money because it's already popular and people will buy it. I think the Avengers kind of fell into that trap last year, and I know that there have been some good superhero games. Batman has had some good games. People love the Arkham series, but I think it's tricky. And if they're going to make good games out of this, they're going to have to do... right? They're going to have to thread the line of like, how do we make a good game of something that comes from another medium and make it work in a different way, or make it work for this medium? So I just think that would be interesting. I would love to play a Wonder Woman game, but I also don't necessarily think that I'm hopeful that it's going to be actually a good game.
Yeah, Wes, like one example of what you're talking about, it reminded me of Spider-Man, the PS4 game, where they're trying to stay true to the character of Peter Parker, who is not only a superhero, but also a kind of scientific genius. And so he works in Dr. Ock's lab and has to do these really dumb, like, lab puzzles within the game to progress the story. It's like, come on, can we just please swing across some New York City skylines instead? Like, that stuff really kills the momentum of the game, just because they're trying to stay true to the character.
Yeah, but I agree with that. I think that didn't ruin the game for me, though. That game was phenomenal. When you're swinging from the buildings and in the combat, you felt like you were freaking Spider-Man, and I thought that was a game that did that really well.
Mhm.
And despite those puzzles being really annoying, like you said, that didn't kill the game for me. I still thought that game was phenomenal. I could have done without those puzzles, but
Agreed.
you had to do like spectrophotometry basically. That was just like,
Oh my
what?
God.
Come on, guys.
Just like
Those were so annoying too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual gameplay, that was, besides that, I think knocked it out the park. And so I'd excuse one bad thing that they did for that.
Wes, this is me pushing back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you
Tell
should
me why
give.
I'm an idiot, bro.
You're not an idiot. But I'm saying is that I think if you look at the larger trend of video games, superhero games, even the last 20 years, I think there's actually a way better track record than we're giving credit for. This is just games that I looked up, but also I've played the vast majority of these. So I like
You brought the receipts.
I like to think I have an informed opinion. There was the top-down
Implying
whatever.
that I do not. I like it.
No, but I'm saying look. So but there's the Spider-Man series that you talked about. There's the Batman series you talked about.
All right.
But then
Those were good
so
ones.
yeah, those are great, right? But then if you go back to the PS2 era, there was the Marvel Ultimate Alliance game series where you could play, and this is before Avengers was mainstream. You had Blade, Captain Marvel, Beast, X-Men all in one game, and you can play them in groups of 4. And that series was, before that, the prequel to that was basically an X-Men series that focused on just X-Men characters. So there's those 4 games right there that had almost everyone who you see in the modern MCU were like playable characters. And this game is over 15 years ago. You think about Marvel vs. Capcom, which is just straight up a fighting game. And the Marvel characters were the ones who really made those games popular. And you got to see, you got to play as Thanos and Juggernaut and Shumagarath. And again, I'm just saying these are very popular mainstream games that were very successful. You can look at, I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's the Hulk Ultimate Destruction, an old PS2 Hulk game.
That's what you're bringing up.
Honestly, that was one of the
pick up the cars and smash people with them.
But honestly, that was one of the best Hulk games I ever played because you really could destroy stuff, catch missiles.
Yeah,
it was.
I remember that.
It was
that game
dope.
Was fun.
Copter.
Yeah, I think one of the even best examples. I think it was so good we forget how good it was. The Injustice fighting game series made by NetherRealm Studios, the same people who made Mortal Kombat. And, for people who don't know, the premise is about evil Superman, right? They're thinking about making an Injustice movie, but here's the thing, and we forget this. That was an original story they created only for the game.
Really?
Now there was a comic that they released with it for the promotion.
Isn't that kind of also, but that was also in the Snyder Cut.
That was because of the games.
Get out of town, really?
The Injustice came out in 2013.
When, the alternate universe with the evil Superman?
Yep, that is inspired by the Injustice comic, which was released because of the Injustice video game that came out in 2013.
I did not know
And that game has one of the best, especially for a fighting game, and it's just a DC product, one of the best stories I've ever played. Because you really get to see evil Superman. They had all the best voice, Kevin Conway as Batman. They had all the best voice actors. So even these examples I named off the top of my head, Wes, you even said the Guardians of the Galaxy game was good. So when you start to really look holistically at superhero games that have come out over the last 20 years, are the duds bad? Yes. But there's a lot of consistent games that have unique niches and across different genres that totally utilize the characters in unique ways. And from the games I have played, they do unique spins on how they interpret the characters. You have more brutal versions of characters, more nice campy versions of characters. MVC, before Guardians even came out, Rocket Raccoon was a character at one point. And, Doctor Strange years before they got movies. So, all that to say, are there going to be bad superhero games? Sure. But there are a lot of really good ones, and it's easy to forget just how many there are, just because a lot of these came out before before superhero movies became mainstream.
All right, we need a ruling then. Brian and or
all
Mike,
that to say, take that, old man.
Should we give superhero video games the benefit of the doubt? Did you believe what Savon said, or should we be skeptical like I think?
I mean, it was I'm one that is swayed by big words, so I'm definitely on Team Savon right
All
here.
of those games are popular and positively
agree with you.
received.
I agree with you. I agree with Savon here. If you put me in a vacuum and put Fox News in front of me for a couple hours, it'd probably come out like... No, I'm kidding. Not quite that far, but I am quite easily...
Keep them away from the internet.
Yeah. but I'm bucked for Suicide Squad too. Like, I'm just like, these people look like they know what they're doing.
I am kind of sus on a Wonder Woman game just because it's like she's kind of OP. It's like, how do you make it Like, how does Wonder Woman die? I'm like in a level, you know.
Falls.
I
into
don't
the
know.
gap.
I don't know anything about Wonder Woman though. So,
Oh, but she
who
can
knows?
fly. Oh, I don't know. All right. If there's a scene where she's carrying Batman and Batman is like, just like doing his little like Batman thing, I think that would be great. All right. Savon, what did you enjoy or what caught your eye?
Yeah, so the superhero stuff, obviously, but that's just we've already talked about that. Honestly, beyond that, I'm curious a little about Star Wars Eclipse, but I'm also at a point in life where cinematic trailers just don't mean anything to me. It's literally just promotional stuff, so like that tells me nothing, and so it's hard for me to get excited about what is essentially
what was the
nothing.
criteria for that cinematic universe.
It's not even that. There's just nothing. It's just no gameplay. It's like, hey, we're making this game. Cool. Tell me something. What's the genre? Who's behind it? So I just don't have enough info to get excited.
All right.
What I will say is that...
Can I say a negative? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're just interrupting Savon all over the place.
I was going to say something negative.
Say it.
I'm lukewarm on Saints Row. Oh, sorry. No, it was.
No. You go ahead.
Is this a bit? Is Mike just going to keep interrupting Savon every time he starts?
As soon as he starts talking.
So I'm reasonably excited for Wonder Woman. I am not excited for Saints Row. I'm gonna fight somebody. I'm not excited for it. Saints Row's in a weird place for me and again, I used to play all the Saints Row games. I was a big fan of the series. They started off as a GTA competitor. They realized that they could make more money going the more absurdist route, and they carved out a niche for that. I think that alienated a lot of their fan base. I think about people like my brother who like the more grounded gang elements of the first Saints Row, and then people like me who love the ridiculous absurdist elements of the later games. And GTA has kind of managed to straddle that line really well of keeping people with the grounded stuff and the absurdist. And so I just wonder for a game like Saints Row, where does this game fit into amongst its competitors? Why should I play Saints Row instead of Grand Theft Auto or some of these others? And the trailer makes me think that they're going to continue to lean into the absurdist route, which is fine. But what are they going to do that's better than what a lot of the GTA games already do in terms of keeping people engaged long term? And I just have serious questions about that. And the trailer looked like it was a fun game, but it almost reminded me of, it's like eating a candy bar. Like, yeah, it's sweet and it's cool in a moment, but that's not a meal. And I got some serious questions.
But if you eat one every day, it becomes your favorite food.
I don't know. I'm just very curious as to who is the target audience for a Saints Row game, considering that they're not going to tone back the absurdist elements. So I think some people just aren't going to care about that when you can do that in GTA and also be more grounded in reality.
Mike, you forget you cannot pick a favorite food because one person's favorite food might not be somebody else's favorite.
You can't pick a favorite food for everybody.
I might not even be a favorite food of today. It might change tomorrow.
I don't even eat. Food. I actually just do photosynthesis. All
Screw
right, just
y'all.
real quick. I'm excited about the Halo show, but I have a visceral opposition to getting a Paramount Plus account.
Yeah,
why is that?
Why. Me too.
It just seems like my line in the sand is Paramount Plus. Like I gave up with the Apple TV. I should probably cancel it. I'm gonna do that later. Anyway, I just don't have any interest in. When we first started this show, I think even before we got Brian or Savon, we talked about pirating a lot. I'm going to bring it back. I'm probably just going to pirate the Halo show because I'm not paying for Paramount. Maybe I'll do like a weekly trial or something. I'm just not doing that. But the show does look cool, and I'm into the Halo lore now. So
I think it feels icky because NBC and CBS are both over-the-air free stations. So why are they charging us for stuff that like is on their free networks?
Yeah, we know why.
I know why. But it's
money.
I think that's why we feel opposed to like springing for those ones. But like, hey, Netflix, take our $13 a month or $17 or whatever it is now.
I'm like afraid of what's going to happen when they finally release those Avatar extended universe shows or movies or whatever. Is that going to push me into Paramount Plus territory? I don't know.
Ooh, might. The last segment we're going to do here is what we're loving, our staple. I mistitled it. I called it What You're Loving. That's not our trademark. What we're loving.
Yeah.
We're going to lead us off here with our good man, award-winning director, Brian Redondo.
In our previous episode, I talked about my game of the year, which is a DLC for Outer Wilds.
Not a game,
by
the way.
The DLC, Echoes of the Eye, I can't get it out of my mind. That's definitely the top level thing of what I'm loving. But so just to get away from that and to pivot a little bit, I'm going to say the other thing I've been loving recently is our friend Wen Wu from the Shang-Chi movies, played by Tony Leung. I rewatched Shang-Chi on Disney now that it's on Disney Plus, and I'm over the moon for Wen Wu's character. And so I wanted to watch Tony Leung in some of his earlier better known roles, or some of his best known roles rather, pre-Marvel. And so he's got this relationship with a famous Hong Kong director named Wong Kar-wai, makes these like perennial Cannes Film Festival movies. And Tony Leung is always the star in it. And so I watched In the Mood for Love and 2046, great art house movies, getting back to my roots of really highbrow artistic quality cinema. And Tony Leung delivers every time. These movies are so scintillating and simmering with texture, and he himself, he's always just like flirting with these women and with like tons of mounting sexual tension in every single scene. And like there's like intrigue and there's lust and maybe there's death on his mind. And it's just like it just like fills you up as you soak in every minute of those movies, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna explode because this is so hot. And so check out Wen Wu, Tony Leung in those movies. In the Mood for Love, 2046. There's a whole bunch of other ones in the back catalog. I'll watch them at some point in my life. But that is what I'm loving these days.
Is this still a PG show? I thought we were going to be PG.
I'm never PG.
I said PG-13 as a compromise.
All right. Where do you get these, or where can you watch these? Can you see them on Netflix or Hulu, or what's the?
Oh my God! So
Internets?
to watch 2046, it was only streaming on Pluto TV. Do you guys know Pluto
God.
TV?
Yeah.
So this is a testament to how good the movie was. We watched it on Pluto, and every like 10 minutes, just interrupted by like 5 ads.
Oh no!
Out of
it's like
nowhere.
YouTube.
And they don't even come in like at the end of a scene. They just interrupt. But we stuck with it. That's how good the movie is. And then In the Mood for Love is on HBO Max. Thank goodness for HBO's collaboration with TCM. There's actually a lot of like great classic film on the streaming platform. In the Mood for Love is one of them.
Awesome. Savon,
What am I loving?
what have you been loving, my friend?
Yeah, so we talked probably some point several months ago about how, we talked about the show Invincible,
Amazing.
the refreshing nature of it, how it kind of embraces superhero tropes and rejects them at the same time, all that,
Top
right?
quality animation and all.
I mean, I think the animation was kind of mid, that's what we were saying. But
Great
writing
show.
was great. Voice acting was great. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna, hey, you don't even know these days. Assume nothing. People make some cold takes. Not me, my takes are fire. But yeah, so I finally started reading the Invincible comic. And I really did not know what I was getting myself into. I knew that I didn't realize Invincible didn't finish its run until like 2018. So fairly recently. So it ran for like almost 15 years. So there's a lot of volumes and content. And so I didn't quite binge it, but it took me about 3 weeks to get through it. And
that's the binge, man. That's 300 issues.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would read it like every day during my lunch break and like every day after work. I get through some. But yeah, but I finished it and oh my goodness, it was amazing. It was just such a fun read. It was nice to see the art style get better. And again, since I'm starting from the beginning, the art style is rough. The art gets better as the volumes go on, so you can see the artists just getting their skills up. The writing really, really stood out to me and was deceptively the highest point of it. There were so many moments in the show or in the comic that, oh, these characters are having real moral dilemmas. Oh, there's a lot of shades of gray in this. And hey, characters who you might think are evil, actually, that might be the best way to put it. Everybody has very clear and understandable motivations, even if you absolutely hate what they're doing. And because their motivations are constantly shifting over the course of the series, characters who you find yourself rooting for at one point you absolutely hate and then root for again, including Mark. Like, there's moments where I'm like, oh, Mark is doing great. And other moments where I'm like, oh my God, Mark, you are blowing it. You are like, dude, I don't know how you're going to come back from this. And yeah, it just showed that the writing was just really intentional and well done. And there's a lot of little things I look out for in comics of like, I think comics in particular can be bad about racial representation and even like how they talk about like women and such. It can be kind of like real macho, I don't know, kind of tone deaf in its writing. They tackled a lot of little things in the comic that I'm like, oh, they're really being thoughtful about how they just approach these things where, not to spoil anything, but, characters go through body changes and traumatic events, and they really go out of their way to address the trauma that characters have been through and not just brush it off. And it happens on all fronts. So it was a great read. The art was amazing. The art gets better over time. I'm definitely going to read it again. I have concerns about how they're going to adapt this into a show because I don't know what they're going to do with all this content. But as a read, it was amazing. And if you're into comics, I highly recommend reading Invincible because, how much it juxtaposes the colorful, bright, vibrant nature of superheroes and then the brutalness of it as well. It's just something I don't think I've seen a lot of superhero things do, period, including all the Marvel content I've consumed.
Co-sign everything Savon just said about that comic. And I can't believe that you finished the series. I'm still only halfway through. And I thought, Savon, you were holding out until the next season of the show came out.
I was. And then, so the problem with me is that because honestly, YouTube just has a thing of spoiling things for me. And so
The algorithm
spoils a lot of stuff. So sometimes I feel like I have to enjoy it before the internet spoils it. But I just decided, I'm about to wait a whole year for this stuff. Let me just read this. And then when they adapt it, I can then either enjoy it or be happy it's its own thing. But
life's too short.
Yeah.
You gotta take
I'm not happy that I kind of binged it, though. I'm actually not happy with myself because I actually am aware, you know what, there's probably some little details I missed out on. So I am going to probably do a slower reread of it just so that I can kind of smell the roses a little bit more. I think I got caught up in just how much fun I was having that I didn't have as much self-control as I normally do.
Yeah, God forbid you have fun.
Yeah, but I'm aware that like
possible outcome.
Yeah,
Your
but
fun getting in the way of enjoying something.
Yeah, but but I would have loved to give myself time to reflect between volumes on, oh man, a big milestone happened. Let it sit for a second. I didn't do that, and I do think that takes away from my larger enjoyment.
Contemplate Invincible.
Yeah, you laugh and be like, yeah, I like to reflect on stuff after I watched it. Yeah, or read it or whatever. So I'm gonna reread it, but if you're into comics, it's a long read. It's a lot of content. You should totally give it a try.
That's actually how I
read
read Invincible, Savon, is that there's so many moments where you're like, damn, I need to put this down for a little bit and just let that breathe. Because something crazy, ridiculous, traumatic, or momentous just happened, and you just have to, you gotta close that book. You gotta close that book for a second.
Facts.
Mike, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna ask, like, did you buy or are you reading this digitally?
I read it digitally because straight up, it's one of those things that's
Comics
so
are expensive,
dude.
Bro.
It's been running for 15 years. So I talked to Kindle about it. He sent me a picture.
Probably.
Yeah, Kindle showed me a picture of like the Invincible, I guess, full volume at a comic store he was at yesterday. It was like a Bible, bro.
And there's 3 of them. There's 3 Bibles.
It is a lot of I might buy it just because I want the art.
For like a week for some of the Star Wars comics, like the Darth Vader one, and they are not cheap. And comics are really short too. I was like, that was $15 right there. That was just like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. The art and the ink, man, the printing cost. But honestly, Invincible was good enough to where I'd consider buying the Invincible hardcover books for the sake of having them for the artwork. I would really consider it. It was that good for me.
Delightful. I don't understand being like, I was having fun, so I was just really mad at myself.
Yeah, let me slow down.
Look,
I'm having
it's the
too
same.
much
You don't
fun
have to
right
explain
now.
it. I got it.
You went to Catholic school?
Yes. Like, imagine if you could just binge Game of Thrones. All the fun and hype that we had with the watch parties and theorizing would have never happened. And that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, but then you get through the end quicker.
All right. What we're loving this week, it was going to be an artist online, or that I know from online. They go by the tag of Uzuri Art, Uzuri. They do these digital paintings of comic book characters, Ahsoka, Marvel characters, Star Wars characters. It's really cool. I love the way that this artist does it. I don't know if it's if they identify as, you know, man or woman or whatever, so I'm trying to use they. It's I just like it, seeing it. It comes across my Instagram feed, it comes across my Twitter feed. But a couple days ago, I got into OBS Studio. OBS stands for Open Broadcasting Software, I think, something like that, or Open Broadcasting Studio. It's a software that sort of can bring in different elements from your computer. So video feeds, it can bring in audio, it can bring in graphics, and it lets you produce your own little show that you can then stream online to Twitch or to YouTube or wherever. And I think a lot of Twitch streamers, you know, game streamers, will use OBS or a version of OBS to make their feed look cool and doesn't just look like a Zoom meeting like, you know, the guys are looking at here with me. And I wanted to play around with it because I wanted to see if I could make us some cool video clips that we could then put online. And it was one of those things where I just could not stop. I was just thinking about it for hours. Like, once I started, I was like on YouTube. Okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like, let me get this started. Even the simplest thing, just like, how do you load, you know, the webcam into this place? How do you resize it? How do you put it in? How do you make it look good? What are some tips and tricks to get this, you know, part looking right? I went down this rabbit hole. I don't know if this is the reason, but I was telling Savon the other day that I didn't go to bed 2 days ago. I didn't go to bed until like 5:30 a.m. I couldn't fall asleep. And I think partly because I was thinking about how OBS Studio was kind of opening up all these opportunities. And I don't know if you guys have this feeling very often. It doesn't come to me very often, where you kind of sense that the thing you're looking at is just the tip of the iceberg, and you make a little bit of progress into it and you're like, oh, this kind of could be a really cool thing. And you're like, I know there are lots of possibilities out there for how to use this. I'm no expert yet. I know there's so much I don't know about it, but I can kind of see that there's like this inkling of possibility here. And I just had that feeling trying to pick apart this software and trying to figure out how to use this interface. So that was the thing that I'm loving. It's just, it was pretty cool to get that experience, something I don't have very often as, you know, as someone who's not in school anymore. I teach, but I'm not in school anymore. So I'm not like having this moment of like reinventing what I'm doing over and over every single day. That was my thing that I'm loving. Sorry, Uzuri Art, you're great, but this was something that I just put a bunch of time and energy and emotion into this week.
And so a media mogul was born.
This is your Jeff Bezos story.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you got here? And I laughed too. You put a little LOL.
I will be very quick about this, because the reason I'm going to be quick about it is because we've talked about all of these things before. I think not only am I on this show, I think I am an ideal listener of the show, because a lot of what I end up consuming are things that I have learned from the show.
Wait, do you actually listen to our show though, Mike?
I have been recently. I did it for like episodes like 5 through like 45, but I have been
right there with you
recently.
Hearing your own voice sucks, bro.
Oh man, I listen to this show every time we make it.
Yeah, Wesley's actually the only reason our listener numbers are going up. So what I'll say is what I've been loving. And I watched this all in the past week. Anna was out of town and I was traveling, so I had some plane time. Number one is Arcane. So go back and listen to our episode about that. That show is phenomenal. I mean, it's far better than it ought to be, given that it's a video game show, essentially, for a game. Not only a video game show, but League of Legends.
Who recommended that one, Mike?
I think Brian.
Okay.
I think these are all recommended. Or the second one is also by Brian.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The Beatles documentary, I watched all of that while Anna was gone. Thoroughly enjoyed that as well.
You watched all 8 hours?
I watched all 8 across like 5 days, but I did watch all of it. It was really good. I actually like the Beatles a lot more now. You know, I had always listened. I went through a phase where I loved Abbey Road, loved Sgt. Pepper's, all that, obviously. But I really liked it. It was super cool. I'm always into behind-the-scenes stuff. I'm always into watching like pre-production for songs I like seeing them be conceived. And I think if you're into that, there's nothing better, especially for a band, you know, of the gravitas of the Beatles. And
wait, so can I stop you there? I gotta ask, as somebody who is an actual Beatles fan, and immersed in their music, like what was the most revelatory thing that you
It's
got
got to
out
be
of
Let
Get
It
Back?
Be. I mean, it's got to be Let It Be. I didn't know a lot of those songs. I think the most, besides like watching that song come to fruition, watching Get Back come to fruition, I think just the level of which they screwed around was revelatory. But and I think you probably made this point, how good of a musician, or how good of musicians they all were. And a lot of that, and I was watching an interview with, not interview, but this guy, Rick Beato, who's a big YouTuber music guy. The Beatles like were a cover band in Hamburg for years, and they were playing like 10 hours a night. So like their repertoire of music is insane. So it's like that really bled into their ability to just create essentially anything. So it's like they would do like, they were like, when they were just fleshing out their songs, because essentially I said I'm not going to go long about this, so this will be my last thought. They just played the songs over and over and over and over and over and over, and every time it got a little better leading up to that rooftop show, which is, you know, one of the most important shows in modern rock music. Half the time when they would play it again, like one time they were playing "Don't Let Me Down" or whatever, like through gritted teeth, like just singing like this as a joke, or like singing in funny voices, or like they do like a Spanish, like a, you know, like a marimba version of things like that. It was just so weird. If they didn't have the weird outfits, like for some reason when I watch stuff that old, like you feel like people act differently. They were literally just young guys who were my age, like they were 10 years younger than y'all were now, just screwing around and still producing one of like the most seminal pieces of rock music in ever. So it's just weird. As someone that makes something that's primarily screwing around, it gives me hope.
What are you
So
referring to?
maybe one day we'll be the Beatles of podcasting. Also, I just love Ringo's easily my favorite Beatle after watching that. Ringo just vibes. Like they're all arguing and he's just sitting there, and then when they're ready to play, he plays, and then he just sits there smiling to himself.
He was getting kind of frustrated though towards the end that like Paul kept telling him like how to play and stuff like that. And I think that's actually one of the reasons he sort
That
of
was
backs
George.
away.
That was George.
Well, no, for George for sure, but Ringo kind of I went back and read Ringo's Wikipedia, and he was kind of like, yeah, like, you know, Paul just kind of comes in and like says you have to play this way, and like, or they. But
I think but I think you need someone on a team like when LeBron wants to coach people, you need people around LeBron that are just kind of like, okay, you know better than I do. Like it's Paul McCartney. So it's like Ringo is an amazing drummer, amazing contribution, but I don't think he would have ever been like, yeah, we should break up.
Yeah, we need a Wes to keep everybody on point.
Yeah, Wes is our Ringo.
Yeah, I think he was
Wes
like,
is
I'm
not
the
our
drummer.
Ringo.
You brought me in to drum. Like, you can also not micromanage every single drum stroke that I do throughout the entire song. Like, let me also do.
But he never would have quit like John did behind, or but like George did. I mean,
yeah, George was like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing here?
Get Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes our 51st episode. Nothing special happens at 51, except Area 51. Hit us up on our socials, Instagram, Twitter, @confidently_pod. Send us some reviews. Apple Podcasts. 5 stars only.
Period.
Tell
Not
your
question
friends.
mark.
Yeah, we
Send
don't
us reviews.
Reviews.
Say stuff, good stuff.
Tell your friends. Really, it's the word of mouth for us, though. Right now, we want to make sure that people are enjoying it. If you didn't like something about our show, tell us that too. We'll cut it out, and then we won't do it on the next one. Also, we don't have any sponsors, but visit all of our sponsors anyway. We always love a good comfy. So if you need a gift idea, or maybe you have some extra money because someone gave you money for the holidays, comfy.com is a good way to spend your money on something that makes you look absolutely ridiculous. Fun.
I resent that. Our branding resents.
Was that a shot at Mike? Yes. We're out.
That
Bye.
hoodie jumper.